Hello, everybody. It's Fiona Lukes here. Here I am live on, what is this? Friday, the 17th of June at my normal time of 12-ish Australian Eastern Standard Time, coming live to you to answer any questions that you may have about relationships, life, anything at all. This is a Q&A time. So if you do have a question or you've just joined me live, and I can see a few people are jumping on now, would love for you to, as always, say hi. Let me know where you are in the world, and if you have a question, please post it in the comments box below, and I will do my absolute best to answer that for you. It's been I was sharing with my relatable students on Wednesday's call. I've had an emotional week this week because one of my second eldest son did what a lot of Australian kind of young people do. I guess I'm trying to put them into I don't know what you call them, young people. You can't say kids. They're not kids. They're young people between the ages of 19 to 25. It's very common for young Aussie to kind of take off and travel around Europe, Canada, the world. See a bit of the world, because Australia is so far away from things. So I drove him to the airport on Wednesday and said goodbye to him as he boarded a one-way flight to Athens. And I was really, how would you describe it? I was really upbeat and excited for him, and I still am. And so I kept it together long enough to say goodbye and tell him how proud I was of him and how much I love him, and I wish him all the very best. And then I drove the car away from the airport, and this wave of emotion hit me like a ton of bricks, as we would say here. And I was very, very emotional. I had a very big cry, and it was just wave after wave of emotion. It would pass, and I would kind of breathe for a little bit, and then another big wave would pass on by. And the reason I'm wanting to share that with you all. Hey, Rose. Hi, darling. Thank you for saying hi. Hello to anybody else out there who's listening here and who'd like to say hi. I'd really appreciate you saying hi so I can know who's there. Oh, thanks, honey. I'm very, very happy for him. And yes, I I know. Thanks, Tanya. Your eldest is doing the same in August. Hey, honey. Yeah, it is. I'm so excited for him because I just know he's going to have the most amazing time. But when you say goodbye and you're like, I don't know when I'm going to see you again. I don't know. It could be a year. It could be 2 years. I actually don't know. I guess what I wanted to share with you all about that, my experience around that. I tried to record an Instagram reel about this, but I don't know. I did something wrong, and I don't have time. I'm so busy during the day with clients and other things. I don't have time for these things. So I tried to record a reel to explain this, but it was a massive fail. So I'm sharing it with you today. Hey, Shane, nice of you to say hi. Thanks for dropping by. Thank you. The reason I'm sharing this with you is, as I watched this wave, and it was wave after wave, and it literally felt like a wave. It would roll over me and wash, and I'd have a big cry, and then it would pass, and it would feel calm again. I literally felt like I was in the ocean, and then another massive wave of emotion would come over me, and it would pass. And it was interesting because having this understanding in my life, one of the great things about that is when I'm having an intense experience like that, I no longer feel the need to control it, manage it, change it, understand it, analyze it, try and distract myself from it. I'm really comfortable in the experience. And when you're comfortable in an experience that you're having and you're not trying to manage it or change it, which most of the time we are doing, whether we're aware of it or not, we're trying to manage ourselves and manage our experiences. When you allow yourself to have an experience without the experience having you, okay, and there's a massive difference between those two things. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this, because this is a huge part of relationships and how we move through them. Okay, when you allow yourself to have an experience without the fear, because really managing something, changing something, fixing something, quashing something, overcoming something, analyzing something is really based in fear, right? And it's based in a fear of, I don't really like, or I'm not comfortable with this. If I can understand why, maybe it will pass quicker. If I can just change it, I'll feel better. If I can, right? So you can see how people go into self-management mode. And this is really not a great idea in our relationships to either do with ourselves or others, but I'm going to speak about that more in a minute. And so as I allowed this to just wash over me, hey, Brenda, hugs from Maine. Oh, thank you, Brenda. That's so kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm taking that. I'm taking that. I had an insight. See, when you're not managing yourself, you've got more bandwidth for insights, and insights are the leverage point for change. Insights are how I live my life these days. Okay, I don't necessarily live my life through my intellect. I live my life through insight, and I look for it. I value it. I see it as a massive asset, and we all have them, by the way. The insights. Me having an insight's not unique to me. It's a human thing. Okay, it's for everybody. They're there for everybody, and they're incredibly powerful. As I was sitting there, having my experience, and hey, Terry, hi, nice of you to say hello. Hi, Terry. Oh, okay, thank you, honey, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very, very kind, everybody. I had this insight, and the insight was, if it wasn't for the fact that I have had the beautiful and profoundly wonderful experience of being a mum, of loving my son the way I do, I wouldn't be having this experience right now. That this experience is an experience based in love. Okay, it comes in love. That's what grief is. Grief is love. It's a form of love, and it's an expression of love. And so, I realized that the reason I'm having this experience is because I've been lucky enough to have an experience of love with my son. I've been lucky enough to share that. And I say lucky enough because love is the most powerful force on the planet. It really, really is. And when you understand that, and when you know the truth of who you really are, and you bring that to the table, your experience of everything changes. Everything. Most people think they're bringing love to the table when they're bringing fear. Okay, and this is true for many, many people, and I see this every day in my work. Most people think they're bringing love to the table when they're bringing a projection of fear. Okay, and there are so many ways in which we innocently do that. And so I just realized I had this beautiful insight as I sat there, and another wave of emotion washed over me, and I had that experience without feeling the need to change it, to analyze it, to understand it, just to let it move through me, because that's what experience does, right? It just moves through you on its own. It doesn't need managing by you. And I wish more people understood this, because then you would actually enjoy your experiences rather than, I'll take that one, thanks, and not that one, which is what so many of us do, right? I want to feel good, but I'm not really into the not feeling good stuff. So if you could just manage that, fix it, change it, and get rid of it for me, that'd be great. And, I often say to people, when you're in that mindset that I'll take that experience, but not that one, really what you're saying is, I'm happy to breathe in, but I really don't want to breathe out. Okay? Happy to breathe in, but I really don't want to breathe out. Now, if you think about it, you're going against the laws of nature. You're going against the laws of human nature. All experience is a natural part of life. It's human nature. But there are so many programs out there, right? If you think about it, that teach you how to feel better, overcome your experience, understand it, change it, manage it. That takes a lot of bandwidth in your mind. It actually speeds your mind up. And when we are sped up, we don't do so well emotionally. Okay? When we're sped up, we don't do so well spiritually. When we're sped up, we're not so great at the connection stuff. We become a lot more controlling. We become a lot more rigid in our views. And when we're sped up, we actually can't see this space and flavor that we're bringing. So, one of the things that happens when you have this experience, or this understanding that I teach, is you really know the difference between when you are sped up and when your mind is slowed down. And let me tell you, there is such a profound difference in your reality, in the world that you see, when you are viewing a situation or something through a slowed down lens versus when you are viewing it through a sped up lens. Now, most people view life through a very, very sped up lens, and they don't know it because that's their normal. And once you normalize something, you can no longer see it. It becomes invisible. Okay. And so I often say to people, a big part of the work that I do is making the invisible visible. Because when something is invisible, you don't have any choice over it. You can't change it. You can't bring something else to the table. But when something is visible, when you have awareness, when you can see it, all of a sudden you have the gift of choice. Okay. And many, many of us do not realize that what we are bringing to the table, the flavor that we are bringing, how sped up we are, the importance of understanding the difference between a mind that is slower and a mind that is busy. Emotional intimacy, for example, is very difficult when your mind is sped up. In fact, I would say basically impossible. When your mind has slowed down, emotional intimacy is very natural and easy. Okay. Something else that I want to speak to around that, which I have mentioned in the past, but someone asked me a question around that this week. And whilst I'm on the topic of sped up minds and minds that are slowed down, if you are someone who is feeling bored with your partner and bored with your life, okay, one thing that I'd like you to consider is perhaps the reason you are bored is because your mind is so sped up. When our mind is sped up and we are in that sped up frame of mind, it looks, and listen to the language I'm using, it looks as though you need more stimulation, right? You need more stuff. You need to be busier. Okay? Now, what if that's not true? What if that is an illusion? Okay? What if that is an illusion? Because I see this a lot. The whole dynamic of, say, someone who's at work full time and their partner is home with the children, whether that be the female who's home at work and the male's at home with the children, or the energy of that, the energy of being at work and the energy of being at home, because this plays out in same sex couples as well, right? That you when you're at work and you're stimulated, and maybe your partner's been at home taking care of kids, or just taking care of whatever at home, you can come home, and because the speed of life at home is different to the speed of life at work, it can seem like this is boring and this is not, right? It can seem like there's a gap here, and the gap is because there's something missing at home. And what often many people don't realize is the gap is the speed at which your mind is going. It's not what's going on at work and what's going on at home, right? The gap is where your mind is at and how fast it's going. And this has a huge impact on emotional intimacy, on how present you are, on whether you feel impacted and touched by life, by how much uh, goodwill you bring to your partner. So when we're very sped up, we tend to come from judgment. We tend to be gauging and assessing. We tend to come from comparison. We tend to be more competitive. I'm more tired than you. I've done more than you. I got up earlier than you more times this week, etc., etc. Right? We're in that analytical, gauging, and assessing aspect of our mind. And we bring that flavor to our relationship. Okay. And then we bring out the worst in each other instead of the best. Now, until a relationship is consistently bringing out the best in one another, you don't really know what that relationship is capable of, right? Okay. You don't. So if you're in a relationship where it feels like it's, push pull, it's really difficult, it's all I'm going to say to you is, I guess that probably means it's been a long time since you focused on bringing out the best in one another. Now, here's a couple of hints. You can't bring out the best in one another when you keep bringing up the past. Oh, but you did this. Oh, but you said this. Oh, but you lied about this. Oh, but you haven't done this. You should have done that. All right. Think about it. You're not bringing out the best in each other then. Okay. You have to be able to cleanly and authentically, and the word authentic, what I mean by is truthfully, because you can't fake this, right? Put stuff down, not pretend that you have and not say anything. That's not putting it down, because energetically you're still bringing it, okay? And your energy enters the room before you do. You got to be able to learn how to put stuff down. Now, what I find is people get so caught up in justifying their anger, and so caught up in justifying their self-righteousness, and so caught up in justifying their position, that they just can't get past the justification of something, and so they struggle to put it down. So everything I teach in my work and in my online program Relatable is helping you with that. Because if you want to really know what something is capable of, you got to know what flavor you're bringing, and you got to know how to put it down. And you've got to know the difference when you have, not when you think you have. There's a massive difference between thinking you've put something down and actually authentically, really, truly putting it down. Massive difference. And it has a massive impact on the other person. Okay? Huge. So, coming back to what I was just saying earlier, and for those of you who've just logged on, I was talking about the fact that my second eldest has gone on a overseas trip and will be gone for, I don't know, a year, possibly 2 years. It's going to be a long time till I see him again. And I was talking about the wave of emotion I experienced as I dropped him off. I held it together until he walked off and then got in the car and, kind of cried my whole way home. I really, I know, and the reason I'm sharing it with you is it was an experience that I did not resist. It was an experience that I was grateful for. It was an experience that I leaned into rather than leaning out of. And even though I felt raw and sad and all of those things, I was grateful for the experience, because this experience is a reflection of the deep love I have for my son and the relationship that we've shared. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the experience. And as I know, experience passes through us. I don't need to manage it. It moves on its own. That's the power of understanding how we work. You actually end up moving with something rather than resisting it. And life is a heck of a lot easier when you do that, right? It's like moving with the change in seasons of the weather instead of resisting it. It's much easier to navigate, isn't it? When you move through the seasons. So what does that look like? Oh, okay, it's winter here. I need to put the heater on. That's moving with it. Instead of, it's winter here, I hate winter, I'm going to pretend that it's not winter. I'm going to pretend that it's summer. I'm going to leave the doors open and I'm going to go outside in a shorts and t-shirt. Okay? That takes an awful lot of energy and an awful lot of bandwidth, rather than when you move with something. Now, you tend to move with something when you're not afraid of it. Now, because many of us don't understand how we work, we don't understand the nature of the human experience, we're frightened of it. And so we resist it. We don't move through it. We don't move with it. And so when we're frightened, what happens to our relationships? We get into an emotional experience that we're not enjoying, or we feel frightened by, or overwhelmed by, or feel like we've got into self-protection mode by. And what do? We handball it to the other person. That's what we do. We project it out. Oh, I don't want this. Hot potato, you have it. Yeah, well, I only yell because you did X. Well, if you haven't said why, I wouldn't have looked at that. Yeah, but it's not my fault that you did. See? Projection, projection, projection. Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato. Now, when you're doing that, you're just bringing out the worst in each other. Really hard to connect. People don't feel safe, emotionally, I mean. And so they retreat into themselves. Okay. Now, we can also do this the other way when we overfunction and we do far too much. That's also fear. Okay. When you overfunction because you don't want to upset someone, you want to make sure they still love you. So you give and give and give and give. Overfunction, overfunction, overfunction. Okay. Now, please understand, when you overfunction, the other person will underfunction. But they're only underfunctioning because you are overfunctioning. Right? They only underfunction because you are overfunctioning. But of course, we don't see that when we're projecting. I don't want you to be upset. I want you to love me. I want you to like me. Projecting. It's still a projection, okay, of our own insecurities, of our own fear. It's a projection. So when you're projecting, what happens? Your expectations go up, especially if you're someone overfunctioning. You want people to be grateful and thankful and appreciative of you. Okay. But if someone's underfunctioning, that won't necessarily happen. They'll take it for granted. That's what underfunctioning is. Okay. They'll take it for granted. They won't see it. Then you're going to get resentful. Then you're going to get frustrated. And then you're going to get upset. Can you see that? But all of these things are always a reflection of where you are. So, the more you are aware of how you are showing up, of you understanding how things work, of you being able to move through your experience, you show up really differently. You show up from a place of love and understanding and calm and connection and groundedness, which has an unbelievably powerful impact on the people around you. Way more than people truly understand. I had someone who bought my ebook recently send me some feedback, which people do, and I haven't responded to it yet, saying, Fiona, it's all well and good to talk about the fact that if you're calmer and you bring goodwill and you do this, you do that, it's going to help, but really you haven't told me anyhow. You haven't told me how to do that. You haven't told me what, right? And I thought to myself, it's so interesting. Instead of trying on what I've said and giving it a go, because I only bought the book a day ago, so I can't have tried it on yet, to actually see whether bringing goodwill, bringing a different energy, doing those things, right, actually makes a difference. I've just been told that I need to give more steps. Now, here's something I really want you to understand. I don't give steps because my idea of goodwill is going to be different to yours. What's the point of you doing my version of goodwill if it doesn't come naturally to you? What would be the point of that? It won't stick, will it? Because it'll be going against what's natural for you. You've got to do your version of you. And I wish more people did more versions of them. This is why I deliberately don't say, step one, do this. This is right. Because I want you to do your version of goodwill. I want you to do your version of bringing your best self to the table. I want you to do your version of bringing love. Okay? It's your version. Because once it's your version, it's sustainable. If it's my version, it's not sustainable. Because you're going to get to a point where you forget, you can't be bothered, you feel like you're working too hard and the other person isn't pulling their own weight, and you're going to give up. And then you're just going to go right back to where you were. See that? But when you have a deep understanding of how things work, all of a sudden you start naturally doing your version. Okay? And as you do your version, it has this beautiful ripple effect around you and on the people around you. Okay? I want you to feel comfortable and confident in doing your version of you, not my version of you. What do I know? I know the power of goodwill. I know the power of being in a good feeling. I know the power of what happens when people understand the way things work, right? This is what I know the power of. Now, when people understand that, they start to step into that place of bringing their own version of that, something that they can relate to, they feel comfortable in, and they feel confident about. And they've got more bandwidth. They're not so much in their analytical mind. They're accessing a whole different element, which is what we all need to access if we want to create beautiful relationships. If we want our relationships to thrive, if we want to thrive. You can't do it through your analytical mind only. You have to know where else to look. And this is everything that I teach. And so as you have this understanding, you get to do your version of you that makes sense to you. Now, the beautiful thing about doing your version of you that makes sense to you is you then, when you see this being reflected back at you, you know that that is for you, not this made up version of you. See? See how one is more empowered than another? I want you to feel empowered, which is why I teach people how to fish. I don't feed them fish. Okay? It's very important that you understand this. So many things are all about step one, do this, step two, do this, step three, step four, step five. It's like, but how does that enable you to do you? This is why I have such a different approach, because so many of these things are based on, you have to do X, Y, Z. No, you have to understand how things work so you can bring your version of X, Y, Z. Okay? Understanding is always the leverage point for change. Always. And when you realize that we are all the same, yes, we express ourselves differently. I appreciate that, but our operating system is the same. And when you know how to navigate that, you can navigate yours, you can navigate somebody else's, you can navigate anybody's in any relationship. That's what I want you to have access to, right? So that you can go fish any fish that you want to fish, right? Hey, Brenda, my pleasure, honey. I'm glad that this is helping, and let me know if this is making sense or if this is helpful to you. I'd love to get some feedback. Now, Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Hi, I'm Andy from Drew in Victoria. Okay, beautiful. Not far away from me at all. Just letting you know I've read your book and hopefully I can put it to use with the struggles in my relationship with my wife. Um, Andrew, if you can see what I'm pointing to in my book, 100% you will. Absolutely. Okay. Because your flavor is going to change. And as your flavor changes, Andrew, you're going to start to bring out the best in each other instead of the worst. As you navigate your frailties with more ease, you're going to feel more comfortable in your own skin, Andrew. And as you do, okay, you are going to feel more empowered. And that is in a beautiful, beautiful place to be in relationship with someone from. Okay. Um, Lisa, we have to foster this with our kids as well, for sure. But you can't foster it with your kids if you haven't fostered it with yourself. Yeah. And which I'm sure you know, right? It starts with you. Everything radiates from you. All right. So foster this in yourself, and you will see it will bloom in your children. Okay, because everything is a mirror of you, right? I know this is not easy for people to understand, and don't hear this as me blaming anyone. Just understand it's a mirror of you. So for example, as I was talking about what happens when someone over functions, the other person under functions, that's your mirror. If you're in a relationship with someone who's under functioning, then the mirror you're getting is right is okay, where am I over functioning? Because people under function when someone else over functions. Now, what does that mean? It means, well, you've got to come at this from a different place. Stop rescuing the people around you and then getting resentful because they're not appreciating you enough. Okay. Come from a place where you're encouraging people to make their own decisions, step in their own power, and do things their way, even if they make a mistake. That's how people learn and grow, right? You've got to allow people to have their experience. So many of us in our relationships are controlling everyone else's experience. You think someone else should experience life the same as you. That is arrogance at the highest level. And I say that with love and grace to all of you, but I see this all the time. Someone who is trying to control someone else's experience of life because you think you know better. Well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that's super controlling. It's super manipulative and it's incredibly arrogant. So please stop doing that. You don't know better than another person. You don't. That's the first thing you have to understand. And it's not up to you to control someone else's experience, right? You're not God, okay? You're here to partner with someone, to walk through life with them, but not control them, not overpower them, not override them. That destroys relationships because people stop feeling safe with one another. And then they retreat into their own corner. And then they just throw pot shots at one another. If you think you know better, you need to have a good look at you. All right? Just saying. And please take that with the love and grace in which I'm sharing it with you, because I see this an awful, awful lot of people who think they know better. And you know where I see it the most? Around people who've done a lot of personal development work. They're the worst. And how do I know that? Because that was me, right? I'd done a lot of personal development work and my husband had not. And somehow I thought that made me more superior. That meant that I knew better, that I had all the answers, that somehow he was less than me because he hadn't done the work, right? Take that out of your mind, vocab, everything, if that's the space you're coming from, really, because it's really not helpful. Really not helpful. Hi, Susan. Hey, thanks for saying hi. Florida. Oh, I bet it's beautiful and warm in Florida right now, Susan. I bet. How I'm fantasizing about Florida. Andrew, just letting you know what you've said today hits the spot. Thanks. Awesome. I'm really glad that it's helpful to you, Andrew. Really glad. Hey, Kay, this is so spot on, Fiona. I'm just doing the module on relatable about letting love in. Oh, yes. I love this. One of my favorite modules, module 6, letting love in. I found those first videos so powerful. Thank you. Your work is brilliant. Oh, thank you, Kay. That's so kind of you to say that. Thank you, honey. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. It's very hot. Oh, I bet it is, Susan. Well, I'm happy for you. I say through gritted teeth. No, I am. I'm happy for you. That's awesome. I'm glad it's very hot. Okay, everybody. So we're almost at the half an hour mark. So before I sign off, I'm just going to check in. Does anyone have any questions at all that, or any feedback or anything that they want to share before I jump off? Is there anything that you have a question around? I will be here next Friday at around 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is when I tend to do these lives. So you can always send a question in to me to hello@fionalukis.com.au and I will answer it for you. And okay, just checking. All right. Doesn't look like there's any more questions. And as always, everyone is always asking me, here's the link to Relatable, my online program, where I teach this step by step over 8 weeks. Relatable is awesome. That's the program Kay was just mentioning. There's a couple of people here who are doing Relatable. So if you want to know more about what I'm teaching and what I'm referring to when I talk about how we work as human beings and how you can actually see how you're showing up and goodwill and all the things that I talk about, if you want to understand that at a deeper level, this is what I teach. We do live calls twice a week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. and on Mondays at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The Monday calls tend to be more for my US Canadian students because it's Sunday afternoon, early evening for them. And we tend to have a lot of the UK, European and Aussie students on my Wednesday night calls. Okay. But it's a wonderful, wonderful community and a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Anyway, everybody, I hope this has been helpful. It's always a pleasure to share this time with you. And I do appreciate those of you that say hi and ask questions and let me know where you are. I will be here next Friday at approximately 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. All right. Lots of love to you all. Have a great weekend. Ciao.